Welcome to Timeless Words, where we uncover the darkest chapters of history that shaped our world. Today's story will leave you speechless, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and ultimate justice served in the dying days of Nazi Germany. If you're ready to witness how one man's ruthless climb to power ended in the most shocking way imaginable, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell so you never miss another untold story from history. Let's dive in. June 3, 1944, while Allied forces prepare for the largest amphibious invasion in human history. Just 72 hours before D-Day, Adolf Hitler attends what would become the Third Reich's final grand celebration. As German cities burn under Allied bombardment and civilians starve in the streets, Nazi elites gather for a 3-day wedding extravaganza that would bind Hitler's inner circle even tighter. The bride? Gretel Braun, sister of Eva Braun, Hitler's longtime mistress who would later become his wife for less than 40 hours. The groom? An SS officer, whose hands were stained with the blood of thousands of innocent civilians, men, women, and children executed in cold blood across occupied territories. His name was Hermann Fegelein, and his story reveals the absolute worst of humanity's capacity for evil. The making of a monster born. October 30th, 1906. In Ansbach, Germany, Hermann Fegelein entered the world with no indication of the horror he would unleash. Growing up in his father's equestrian academy in Munich, young Hermann developed exceptional horse riding skills, competing in show-jumping competitions and appearing to have a promising athletic future ahead. In 1925, the 19-year-old enlisted in the 17th Bavarian Cavalry Regiment, serving 3 years before transitioning to the Bavarian State Police in Munich as an officer cadet. However, even then, warning signs emerged. His superiors described him as dangerously ambitious, someone whose hunger for advancement couldn't be channeled appropriately. Their concerns proved prophetic. Summer 1929 brought Fegelein's first documented act of corruption. He broke into a superior officer's quarters to steal examination answers. Caught red-handed, his police career crashed to an abrupt halt. But Fegelein possessed a talent that would serve him well in the coming nightmare. He lied effortlessly. He later claimed he'd voluntarily resigned to dedicate himself fully to the Nazi cause, spinning disgrace into apparent devotion. Rising through blood and deceit, Fegelein's father had already opened doors to darkness, repeatedly allowing SS units to use his riding facilities for meetings and training. Through these connections, Hermann found his true calling, not as an athlete or officer, but as an opportunist ready to exploit Germany's descent into totalitarian madness. August 1930 marked his entry into the Nazi Party and SA. By 1933, he joined the SS, perfectly timing his allegiance with Hitler's seizure of absolute power. Germany transformed into a dictatorship, and men like Fegelein, those without conscience, without boundaries, without basic human decency, found unlimited opportunities. Managing his father's riding institute, Fegelein caught the attention of Heinrich Himmler, architect of the Holocaust and commander of the SS. Tasked with overseeing equestrian facilities for the 1936 Berlin Olympics, Fegelein impressed the Reichsführer with his organizational skills and shameless flattery. Himmler called him his golden boy. Fegelein's youthful appearance, combined with masterful manipulation tactics, made him Himmler's protégé. The mass murderer treated this scheming opportunist like the son he never had, showering him with promotions and protection that would enable unspeakable atrocities. By 1937, Fegelein commanded the SS main riding school in Munich, created specifically on Himmler's orders. His rise seemed unstoppable. Then came September 1, 1939, the day Germany invaded Poland and unleashed World War II upon humanity. The killing begins. Fegelein's death's head horse. Regiment arrived in Poland shortly after the invasion's conclusion. On November 15, 1939, Himmler expanded the unit from 4 to 13 squadrons, recruiting ethnic Germans living in occupied Polish territories. Officially, they were assigned to combat gangs and partisans. The reality was mass murder, operating alongside the Einsatzgruppen, Nazi. Germany's mobile killing units, Fegelein's regiment systematically executed Polish civilians. Their targets, the intelligentsia, teachers who educated Poland's children, priests who provided spiritual guidance. doctors who healed the sick, anyone who represented Polish culture, leadership or resistance to Nazi occupation. These victims had been identified before the invasion even began. Lists had been prepared. Once murdered, bodies were dumped into mass graves, erasing entire communities' leadership in coordinated genocide. On December 7, 1939, Fegelein's unit participated in executing 1,700 Poles in Campinos forest alone. These operations murdered 100,000 Polish civilians, 100,000 human beings with families, dreams and futures, extinguished because Nazi ideology deemed them expendable. December 15th brought reorganization. Fegelein's regiment split into 2 units, but problems emerged. His men faced supply shortages, leading to rampant corruption. Soldiers stole money and luxury goods to ship back to Germany. When caught, Fegelein himself faced court-martial on multiple charges: theft, murder motivated by greed, and sexual relations with a Polish woman. Nazi racial laws forbade German soldiers from relationships with Polish women, considered an inferior race. When Fegelein discovered his lover was pregnant, he forced her to undergo an abortion. Reinhard Heydrich, chief architect of the Holocaust, attempted multiple investigations into these allegations. Each time Himmler intervened, dismissing all charges against his golden boy. Protection from the top enabled Fegelein to continue his reign of terror unchecked. Expanding the Holocaust May 10, 1940, Germany launched its Western offensive, conquering France, Belgium, Luxembourg and the Netherlands within 6 weeks. Fegelein participated in the French campaign, receiving the Iron Cross Second Class in December 1940, a military decoration that became meaningless in hands stained with innocent blood. Then came June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa, Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union. Fegelein's unit deployed to the Eastern Front, where the Holocaust would reach its most horrific scale. Himmler issued explicit orders: exterminate partisans and Jews throughout Soviet Byelorussia and Ukraine. Enemy soldiers in uniform could be taken prisoner. Everyone else shot immediately. Jewish men, except for a handful of skilled craftsmen and physicians, faced execution without trial, without mercy, without humanity. The killing accelerated. When Himmler deemed the death toll insufficient, he issued new orders: execute all Jewish males over 14, drown women and children in swamps. When swamps proved too shallow or non-existent, shoot the women and children too. Fegelein disguised this genocide as anti-partisan operations. His final report documented approximately 16,000 murders. His unit's losses: 17 dead, 36 wounded, 3 missing. The mathematical disparity reveals the truth. These weren't battles. They were massacres, executions, the systematic annihilation of defenseless civilians, including children. October 1941 brought another court-martial for theft. Again, Himmler dismissed all charges, allowing Fegelein to continue his blood-soaked career without consequence. December 1942 saw Fegelein seriously wounded twice by a sniper. Perhaps karma momentarily caught up, but he survived, and throughout 1943, his division continued operations against partisans, murdering civilians, burning villages, stealing livestock. Entering Hitler's inner circle January 1944 marked a pivotal shift. Himmler assigned Fegelein to Hitler's headquarters staff as his personal liaison officer and SS representative. The mass murderer had reached the absolute center of Nazi power. Hitler's inner circle despised him. Albert Speer, Hitler's architect and armaments minister, called Fegelein one of the most disgusting people in Hitler's circle. Remarkable condemnation considering the company he kept. July 20, 1944. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg planted a bomb at Hitler's Wolf's Lair headquarters in a desperate assassination attempt. Hitler survived. Fegelein, present during the explosion, received minor shrapnel wounds to his left thigh. More than 7,000 people were arrested in the conspiracy's aftermath. Nearly 5,000 were executed, often on minimal evidence. Fegelein proudly displayed photographs of hanged conspirators, showing them around like grotesque trophies. The man who'd murdered thousands of innocents celebrated the execution of Germans who'd tried to end Hitler's regime. to end Hitler's regime. June 3, 1944, 3 days before D-Day, brought Fegelein's wedding to Gretel Braun. The ceremony at Mirabell Palace in Salzburg featured Hitler, Himmler, and Martin Bormann as witnesses. Eva Braun orchestrated every detail. The reception at the Berghof and celebration at the Eagle's Nest lasted 3 days, the Third Reich's final grand party while Europe burned. This marriage was purely political calculation. Fegelein saw an opportunity to cement his position through family connection to Hitler. He remained a notorious playboy with countless extramarital affairs. Traudl Junge, Hitler's secretary, later recalled Fegelein telling her that only 2 things mattered to him: his career and a life full of fun. The final days and ultimate betrayal, early 1945. The Third Reich collapsed. January 16th, Hitler moved into the Führer bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery Garden. April 21st, Soviet forces reached Berlin's outskirts. Everyone knew the end had arrived. Fegelein abandoned his post. When Hitler sent SS units to retrieve him, they found the Golden Boy drunk in his Berlin apartment, wearing civilian clothes, preparing to flee to Sweden or Switzerland. He'd packed cash and jewelry, some belonging to Eva Braun. His briefcase contained documents revealing Himmler's secret peace negotiations with Western allies. The opportunist, who'd climbed to power through flattery, murder, and connections, was abandoning the sinking ship. He was dragged back to the Führer bunker under arrest. Hitler's rage was absolute. Learning of Himmler's negotiations, which he considered ultimate betrayal, Hitler ordered Himmler's arrest. Fegelein was stripped of all rank and ordered court-martialed. Eva Braun pleaded desperately for her brother-in-law's life. Her sister Gretel was in late pregnancy with Fegelein's child. Eva genuinely liked Hermann. None of it mattered. Hitler was beyond mercy, if he'd ever possessed any. According to Traudl Junge's testimony, on April 29, 1945, Hermann Fegelein, aged 38, was taken to the Reich Chancellery Garden. He was executed like a dog. Journalist James P. O'Donnell conducted extensive interviews in the 1970s, uncovering additional details. Hitler ordered General Wilhelm Mohnke to convene a military tribunal. Mohnke later testified that Fegelein arrived so intoxicated he was crying, vomiting, and urinating on the floor. He refused to acknowledge Hitler's authority, insisting he answered only to Himmler. German military law required defendants to be mentally competent and understand charges against them. Mohnke closed proceedings and turned Fegelein over to security personnel. He was never seen again. Most historians believe he was executed by firing squad in the Chancellery Garden, though some accounts suggest he was shot in a basement cell. The aftermath and legacy Gretel Braun survived. On May 5, 1945, days after Germany's surrender, she gave birth to Eva Barbara Fegelein. That child carried the weight of her father's monstrous legacy throughout her life. In April 1971, after her boyfriend died in a car accident, Eva Barbara took her own life. She was just 26 years old. Gretel eventually remarried and lived until 1987, dying at 72. Nobody mourned Hermann Fegelein. No tears were shed for the man who murdered thousands, betrayed everyone, and embodied the absolute worst of Nazi evil. His death in those final chaotic hours represented a tiny fragment of justice in a war that had claimed over 60 million. Lives to understanding evil's banality, Fegelein. A story reveals a terrifying truth. Monsters aren't always born. Sometimes they're created through opportunity, ambition unchecked by conscience, and systems that reward cruelty. He wasn't some comic book villain with supernatural powers. He was a mediocre opportunist who found himself in circumstances where murder advanced careers and genocide became administrative duty. The bureaucratic efficiency with which he reported approximately 1,000 deaths as casually as reporting inventory. Numbers demonstrates how ordinary people can commit extraordinary evil when systems normalize atrocity. His protection by Himmler despite repeated crimes shows how corruption at the highest levels enables horrors at every level. Each dismissed charge, each ignored investigation, each promotion despite clear evidence of theft and murder sent a message. There are no rules, no accountability, no justice for those with powerful protectors. This wasn't ancient history. This happened within living memory. Survivors of Fegelein's massacres may have lived into the 21st century, carrying trauma from encountering this monster and his men. Hermann Fegelein's execution in that bunker garden wasn't tragedy. It was inevitability. The man who'd spent years dealing death finally received what he'd given thousands of innocent victims. A brutal, sudden end without dignity or mercy. But here's what we must never forget. Fegelein wasn't unique. He represented a system, an ideology, and a moment in history when humanity's darkest impulses were given official sanction and institutional support. Understanding his story isn't about obsessing over one individual's evil. It's about recognizing the warning signs, the systems that enable such monsters, and our collective responsibility to prevent history's repetition. If this story impacted you, if you believe these chapters of history must never be forgotten, then subscribe to Timeless Words right now. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the moments that shaped our world. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. I read every single one. And share this video with someone who needs to understand why we study history's darkest moments. Together, we ensure these stories survive as warnings for future generations. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never forget the lessons history teaches us.